Hi, I am so excited that you're back. So excited. I just want to start by saying how much I appreciate when you guys send me messages and when you post and you let me know what is resonating with you through these podcasts. I love it. I actually, just as I was sitting down to record this episode, I got a message from someone, a text message. And someone had said to me, they said, oh, let me find the text. They said, needed to hear your podcast today. Thank you for the new episode. And I actually messaged back. I said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm actually sitting here about to record another one. I love and appreciate and need this kind of feedback. So thank you. It really helps me to know what's resonating, because when you're speaking into a microphone and talking into a camera, and not having feedback on the other side, like I traditionally would for a live or a Zoom where I can see people, or in a room full of people where I can read your face. It's hard. Like, it's super hard to know what's resonating. I don't check my analytics because I don't want to get caught in the game with podcasts, like sometimes is easy to do with Instagram and Facebook. I just talk, and I hope and I pray that whoever's meant to receive what I have to say is listening to this. And I just want to thank you. I'm going to take a minute just to express my gratitude for how much I appreciate you being here and you being a part of my journey, however long or short you've been here. Your time and your trust in me matters. And your just being here in my journey with me, it really does matter. And I hope that I am as much of a positive influence in your life as you being here supporting me is in mine. So thank you. Okay, guys, we're doing this every other week thing. You know, this was supposed to be like a 5-part series in January, and here we are I think we're in March now, end of February, March when this comes out. And we're still going. We're on part 4 today of my no-fail new year. We are talking about something. I'm not going to tell you what we're talking about yet. What I want to say is this every other week thing. It's part 1, 2, 3, now 4. We've kind of layered these with other awesome podcasts that are more timely in my life. Like last week, I posted a podcast that I'm really passionate about, and I know many of you have questions about. It is about this health situation that I am currently inside of that is ever changing. And I'm sure from the time I recorded it to when that was posted, when it aired, I'm sure things had changed. So I will continue to update you guys on the new findings. Guys, hopefully this is all nothing, but it's here. And it's real. And the fact that it could be something, as I'm seeing real life happen to other people, friends, parents and friends getting cancer and having all sorts of things. Life is so precious to me. Life is so precious. One of the things that I said when I found out it could be cancerous is I had said to a friend, I said, this is unfair. And life is unfair. I get it. But I couldn't even say it without crying. But I said, there are so many people who do not love their life. And I do. I love my life. I love my kids and my family. And I know everyone loves their kids and their family, but I love what I've gotten to wake up and do as long as I can remember, like even past transformation, I loved my job. I loved what I did. And now working less and being with my kids and showing up here when I want to, I love this. I really, truly love and appreciate so much. And I can't imagine anything better than this. I can't imagine anything better than connecting with you guys and sharing with you guys, and also being present for my kids and having the freedom to explore relationships and new things. And I love it. I love it. So, I am going to keep asking questions. I am going to keep fighting through whatever it is. And I pray to God every night. And I want to ask you to pray too, if you're not already. I know so many of you are. But I pray that it's nothing. And I pray that it's a wake-up call that we all need. Anyway, okay. Until we find out, and even after, I'm going to podcast for you guys. I'm going to podcast for me and for you. So like I said, today is part 4. Oh, if you didn't catch that episode, go catch it. But today is part 4 of my No Fail New Year series with you. So far, we've talked about integrity. We've talked about thoughts and overthinking. We talked about last one, part 3, we talked about change, like the emotional stages of change and realistic expectations. I mean, so many good ones. Integrity, we know that's the base of any change. It's the base of transformation. It's the base of self-love. Integrity equals self-love, right? Thoughts and overthinking, that next lesson about rewriting your story. Like, how can you actually rewrite the dialogue that's happening in your head? How can you view yourself differently, create a different identity? And then the last one, which is, realistic expectations and understanding the 5 stages of change, because there are 5. And by understanding these and giving ourselves realistic expectations, we can be better prepared for any journey. Now, this week, I'm going to talk to you about what I believe is one of the greatest pitfalls of any transformation. I truly do. It is a pitfall. It is something where if you are not aware of it, right? And hopefully today brings you awareness. If you don't have the tools, the keys to understand how to utilize this in a healthy way, this can take you down. Okay. This is very important to me. And this is a thing I used to think I did not struggle with. And over time, I've realized that I do. And it's just in a very different way than I saw other people struggling with it. But I really do. It's something I have to catch myself on the regular. I hope you know, as I teach, I'm also preaching to myself always. These are things that I'm human, right? Just because I have a microphone and a camera and a platform and you guys here does not mean that I am immune to these things. I feel them. I have to work through them too. And as I work through them, I share them with you. So excited about part 4 today. And also, I want you guys to know that while each episode does build on each other, build on the other to give you what I believe is the secrets to a no-fail New Year and a life that you love. Each episode does stand individually on its own. So I don't want you to worry if you missed something. It's okay. Like, you are meant to get whatever you get out of today's episode. You are. And there's probably going to be 50 things that resonate. Just catch one. Use the gold nugget rule and my gold nugget rule, which is, what is one gold nugget that you learn today or you hear today that when and if you implement it into your life will make massive change over time, because it does not take big action. It just takes consistent action every single day. Okay, so I'm going to begin today's episode with an Instagram post that I've shared a handful of times because it's so powerful. And like I mentioned, I do fall into this trap of this pitfall, this sand trap, whatever we want to call it, that can rob us of perceived success. It can rob us of all things good. So yes, like I said, it is a trap. This thing that we're going to talk about today, maybe if you have any guesses, write them down. It is something that can eat us alive, right? It can take our lives from being beautiful and amazing to miserable and literally intolerable in an instant. It's something that many of us have been caught in many, many times, and probably most of us in one shape or form. Maybe we're inside of it right now. And I want you to think about this, okay? As I reveal this, as I talk about this, if you don't already know what it is, I want you to be honest with yourself and ask yourself if this thing is something you struggle with. I'm going to give you a hint. This thing is the thief of joy. It is the thief of joy. Which one thing is the thief of joy? All right, so my Instagram post, it was a quote on a square that someone else had said, and I reposted. It said, the fastest way to kill something special is to compare it to something else. I'm going to read that again. The fastest way to kill something special is to compare it to something else. Literally, before I share the content, what I said in the caption, because I'm going to share the caption, I want you to think about this for a minute. When you have something special that you believe is special and amazing, whether it's a car or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a friend or a house or a project you worked on at work, or fill in the blank, something you are proud of. When you have something special, the fastest way to kill its specialness is indeed to compare it to something else. Think about that. When you have that something special and you think it's amazing, you buy a new car, right? And you're driving on the road and suddenly, like the next day, you see a car that your friend just bought that might be a little bit nicer than yours. That instant comparison of a car that you were so proud of a minute ago has killed the pride because, and only because, you saw what your friend had that you do not have. I want you to think about relationships. When you're inside of a relationship that's so wonderful, you and your husband or your wife are just on cloud nine, doing amazing. And then suddenly a friend walks by with a relationship that you view as better, you perceive as better or more enlightened or with deeper, richer conversation, or maybe they go on more vacations, or he buys her more jewelry, fill in the blank. And suddenly what you had with your spouse or your partner that was so special has lost its shine. Not because anything inside of the relationship changed, but your view changed. Instead of looking straight ahead with your partner, you veered to the left and you caught the view of another relationship that you perceived as better. A husband who buys more or does more or seems like they have fewer problems. And then suddenly your specialness has dulled and it's gone for no reason other than comparison. So there is a lot of emotion in this lesson for me because I have felt comparison in so many different ways. I feel like I felt it on both sides, right? As the person comparing and potentially the person being compared to, simply by way of me having a platform that I'm so grateful to have. And also, I understand that as someone whose job is to post on Instagram, and sometimes it comes across as posting a highlight reel. I think especially in the past, maybe now, I'm sure now, because I can't control what other people think. I do think sometimes I've been possibly the source of unhealthy comparison, and I do not like that. I really don't like that. And I think that thought alone has helped me share even more authentically, to make sure people know that life is not rainbows and butterflies for me always. It's not. It's really not. I struggle, I am human, and also I learn and I share. And even after I learn and I share, I still struggle. Okay, so here's what I wrote when I posted that quote. I said, whether your career, family, marriage, material possessions, or your own self, the second you turn your focus from what you have to what you do not have is the second you lose sight of all the things you have to be grateful for. How we parent, how we build businesses. We let our ice cream melt while we are busy counting someone else's sprinkles. Wealth and abundance are already there, whether you see it or not. So everything you need to be happy and fulfilled is also there, all of it. All it takes is an adjustment to the lens with which you view life through. I only preach this because I really need to hear it some days. So if you have or you are experiencing this, you're not alone. Like I said, I do struggle with this sometimes. So obviously, this is comparison, okay? What I'm talking about is comparison. So the dictionary defines comparison as a consideration or estimate of similarities or dissimilarities between two things or people. So essentially, you're taking two things or two people and you're considering, okay, what are the similarities and what are the dissimilarities between these two things or these two people, right? Sounds simple and technical, but I prefer Theodore Roosevelt's definition, which is what I hinted to earlier, where he said, comparison is the thief of joy. I want you to think about how many times you've compared. And it has taken what was so joyful away from you and brought you into misery. What happens is comparison takes the focus off of what is, and it puts it on what is not. What we have is so beautiful, but it's really hard to see when we are putting our lens on that is automatically, magnetically focusing on what we don't have. Like I said earlier, we're letting our ice cream melt because we are so busy counting someone else's sprinkles and upset. Like, think of how many times, maybe as a child, whether it's you or a sibling, you've had toys given to you and your siblings. And at least one of the siblings, maybe it was you, was so busy comparing. Like, you may have had an amazing toy from your parent, but you're so busy looking at and comparing your toy to your sibling's toy, you forget that what you have is even a gift. I had someone tell me a story once. JD Roth told me this, me and Chris, my ex, this story at one point. He said, I took my sons to the circus. And at the circus, like they wanted to go to the circus for so long. They were just begging and seats were hard to get. And I finally got tickets to the circus. And the tickets to the circus were like 20th row, right? So they're sitting 20th row. They're at the circus. And when they get up to their seats and the circus is going, one of his sons catches view of someone down lower in a seat that's closer to the elephants and the clowns and all the things happening. And all that son could talk about the entire rest of the time was how his seat was not where that person's seat was, and his experience was miserable. So his experience was amazing until he realized that someone else had a better seat in the house. And when that realization clicked, the joy and the happiness and the fun that should have, could have, would have was there, was lost on the fact that his seat wasn't as good as someone else's. And I've done this a lot, and I really would love for you today to do an inventory right now of the things in your life, the places in your life where you are dissatisfied. And recognize that the reason why you're dissatisfied isn't because you don't have enough. It's because what you have, which is enough, is being compared to what you have not. Remember, comparison takes the focus off of what is and puts it on what is not, off of what is joyful, off of what is fun and love and bright. And that comparison puts it on what's missing, what we don't have, right? We're thinking about life, all the things beyond us, behind us, not even in our realm, right? In someone else's realm. It's like FOMO. Like, we're so focused on what we're missing out of, the fear of missing out. We're so focused on what we're missing out on that we can't even see what we're inside of, right? Comparison is robbing us of moments. It's robbing us of our accomplishments. It's robbing us of life. It's robbing us of the joy of the seasons of life that we're in, even because sometimes we're comparing to the seasons of life we're no longer in. Comparison substitute lies of what we tell ourselves, or society, or Instagram, or other people tell ourselves it should be, could be, or needs to be. I'm going to say, I want to give a personal example because I don't want to just sound like I'm saying you, right? In my life, there are so many, like right now, I'm in the middle of something where I said earlier, I'm super happy with where I am. No, let me say that a different way. I am super happy with where I am until I compare where I am with where I was. For example, last year at this time, I was in the middle of a lot of business. I was exerting a lot of energy on business. I had help with my kids. I had help around my house. Which afforded me to spend time building businesses and bringing in more revenue than I bring in right now, and helping more people than I feel like I'm able to help right now. I was more involved, right? I felt like I was efficient. I felt like I was productive. I was telling someone in journaling yesterday about this. I felt like a boss. And I was like 8 months outside of my event that I ran. I had led thousands of women through challenges and mastermind courses and nutrition education. And I just saw their lives changing. And I was getting feedback in the form of positive accolades. And, seeing and I had pride for the number of employees that I had that I was helping the families of. Like, I knew that I was supporting these women and men, and I was able to provide for many people. I have a sense of pride for that. And, life happens, and it was a wake-up call for me that put me in a totally different season where my priorities have shifted and the things that mattered then don't necessarily matter now. And I love where I'm at in so many senses. And then yesterday, I had a pity party where I was like, wait, but who am I if I'm not that person? I knew where I was going. I knew what I was doing. I was very business centered. And I think there's a part of me that's kind of wired to be enough if I'm creating enough, bringing in enough, supporting enough people, And I found myself in a moment of robbery. That comparison had stepped into my joy, my arena of joy. It had stolen it from me right in front of my eyes and had made me suddenly disappointed and feeling like I wasn't enough and sad. And I wish I had my journal in front of me because I wrote all these things. I felt disempowered. I felt small. I felt incapable. I felt like I already said powerless. I felt weak. All because I, in that moment, compared one aspect of my life, one aspect, to where I was 1 year ago. And in the grand scheme of things, I'm still doing much better now than I was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, ever in my life. But that little voice in my head, that negative thought, rooted itself so deep that I had to do some serious journaling and talking through to get out of the rut that I was in. And I had to do some serious work inside of the lesson I am teaching you today to become aware of what was happening and to use the tips that I'm going to give you today to get me out of it. So there's my example. Now, have you heard of a term called biology class syndrome? I'm not going to take credit for this syndrome, and I'm not even going to say I love parts of it. However, someone introduced me to this syndrome, they call it. And essentially what they said, I don't even love, but it helps paint a good picture, okay? Biology class syndrome. This person was saying, well, I love being like, biology class syndrome is when, you're in biology and you are surrounded by people who maybe are bookworms or nerds, which I think is super sexy, but in high school and junior high, many people don't. What this person said is suddenly you appear a 10 out of 10 because you are surrounded with people who don't care about their appearance and are more invested in books. So that person, who was a little shallow-minded, I'm not going to lie, had said, I love to put myself in situations where I know I'm the strongest, where I know I'm the best looking, where I know I'm the smartest, right? He said, this is biology class syndrome. Yeah, I look like a shining star because I'm surrounding myself with people who might not care about that. Or I sound like I know what I'm talking about because I'm purposely surrounding myself with people who don't know what they're talking about. It is super ridiculous, but it is a great example. It shines the truth on what comparison can do. And it can make a less attractive, less smart, less successful person feel more attractive, smarter, more successful by surrounding themselves with people who they know are less of those things. I shouldn't say who they know, who they believe are less of those things, right? That's an example of comparison. One thing I want you to keep in mind, and I know a lot of people who do this, and I'm not going to lie, when this person gave me the example, I didn't love biology class syndrome because I don't like comparing looks. However, I would say when he said this to me, I was like, man, I think I've done this for most of my life. I think I've surrounded myself with people who make me feel comfortable so that I feel good about who I am, instead of surrounding myself with people who make me uncomfortable, because then I might not be as smart or as bright or as fill in the blank, right? And yeah, it has made me appear like I'm doing really well for myself. It kind of lies to me and says, Heidi, you're doing awesome. And also, it has robbed me of growth, right? I want you to keep in mind that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. You truly are the average of those people. The key is not to surround yourself with people who you feel are less than you. The key to growth and to achieving your best self, and I truly believe you can think of times in your life where you surrounded yourself both ways, but the key is to surround yourself with people who you view as smarter or more successful or happier. Like, think of the things that you want in your life that you wish you had more of. Don't surround yourself with people who have less than you in that, just so you can feel like you have more than. Find people who have more of that thing than you do, more of that skill, more of that feeling, more of that fill in the blank. And remember that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around, because you will eventually rise to their level. And likewise, if you surround yourself with people who you feel are less than you, you will eventually drop to their level. Lower standards, lower whatever. You will drop to them and they will rise to you. Or surround yourself with people higher than you. You will be elevated. Okay? I want to say, every single time I'm in a rut, every time, I can usually track it back to 2 things. Number 1, integrity. We've talked about that before. But I feel like this comparison thing, and then number 2 is comparison. There's a break in my integrity, and there's a place I'm comparing myself. Usually, the comparison is a precursor to a break in my integrity. When I catch view of somebody else and I see what they have that I don't, it suddenly creates feelings of inadequacy, feelings of hopelessness or desperateness or whatever it is, that then leads me to justify and break my integrity in some way. Now, you may be in a place where it's the opposite. Maybe a break in your integrity leads you to compare because you're vulnerable, right? When you don't do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, you then are already feeling hopeless and worthy. You don't have the dignity and the self-love and the confidence. And so naturally, when you see someone else, you're not as strong, and you compare, and then you rob yourself of what is. But when you take the time to try and track what's going on, it's almost always connected to some area where you feel inadequate because you've compared yourself to someone, to something, to some opportunity, to your old self, whatever it is. Maybe it's comparison with what you saw on Instagram. Maybe it's comparison with how someone on Insta parents or just someone down the street parents. Maybe it's the kinds of things they're doing. Maybe it's things you could have, should have, would have done in the past, wish you would have. And then you feel inadequate because you're not doing those same things. You know, someone once said to me, and this wasn't that long ago, they said, why are more people depressed now than ever? The answer is because we exist in a world of comparison. Even if we existed in comparison 20, 30 years ago, without social media, without the web, without online, we only had the 10 people on our street to compare ourselves to. That's it. We only had the 10 families we knew. We were only comparing to our next door neighbors, our across the street neighbors, our diagonal neighbors. And now we have this amazing device, right here at the palm of our hands, that gives us access to so much, which is a gift and also the greatest curse, because we see millions of faces and compare ourselves to all of them. We see so many jobs and careers and successes and accomplishments that what we had or what we have never feels like enough. I miss the days, and I'm sure you miss the days, where the only people we had to compare ourselves to were our neighbors. And unfortunately, we cannot go back, but we can do something about it. And that's what we're doing today. We're becoming aware of this. And we're going to have tips to help pull you out of these comparison ruts. Now, something I want to talk about is each thing in our life, each trap, we're going to call this a trap. It's not just a cost. Like, there's a cost, but there's also a payoff. Like, we compare because there's a payoff. It's like scratching an itch, like something itches. Ooh, so we scratch it. Hear that? We scratch it because the scratch feels so good, right? That's the payoff. The cost is we can scratch sometimes so hard that we create a wound. Everything has a cost and everything has a payoff. Okay, so comparison. What's the payoff? We do it because there's a payoff. The payoff is that we get to justify, I'm going to speak for me. I get to justify why I didn't become who I should have been. I get to wallow in my sorries and feel bad for myself, right? And I get to say, well, I couldn't have done it. I am not where I should be because I don't have the life that that person has. I don't have the resources. I don't have the this. I didn't have the upbringing where my parents did X, Y, Z for me, right? So I get to justify why I'm not living up to the standard that I want myself to, right? It gives me an opportunity to wallow in my sorrows. I get to be sad. I get to feel sorry for myself. I get to stop feeling my own reality. When I'm comparing to someone else, I am numbing myself from my own reality. I get to escape and I get to live inside of someone else's world, right? And I'm sure you can feel that. We don't like our reality. So we go live inside of someone else's reality when our real reality is that if we didn't know that their reality existed, we would be perfectly happy with our reality. Think about these pictures and videos that you see, or if you've ever been to a small country, right? A country where they don't have much and they are so happy, right? And here we are, like, it's a reality check because you're like, wow, I have so much. And then you're going, how can I have so much and so little at the same time? It's because they don't have anything to compare their reality to. They have their life and their life is enough. We, on the other hand, there's so much available and it's so easy to compare. So that's the payoff. The payoff is we get to escape. The payoff is we get to justify maybe why, as we're going, well, they have this, they have that, they have that. We justify why we're not where we want to be because we don't have what they have, right? That's the payoff. What's the cost? What is the cost of comparing? The cost is your happiness. The cost is your joy. The cost is the deserved sense of accomplishment and achievement that you should be feeling because of what you've done. The cost in some instances is broken families. It's destroyed businesses. It's debt. It's drugs. It's alcohol. Fill in the blank. Think of the things that comparison has cost you. It's cost you love and feeling like you and what you have is enough. It's also costing you greatness because when you can't shine, you can't help others shine either. So here's the deal. Comparison affects everyone, every single one of us, either negatively, like we've been talking about, or positively. So there's the hook. It's not all negative. It can be positive, but everyone compares in one way or another. So I did share some mind-blowing stats about our thoughts in part 2 of this 5-part series. If you missed them or want a refresher, I want to say it here because it applies. According to Dr. Joe Dispenza, according to Dr. Joe Dispenza, he says, you think 60 to 70,000 thoughts in one day. 90% of those thoughts are the same as the day before. So the same thoughts will always lead to the same choices. The same choices will always lead to the same behaviors. The same behaviors will always create the same experiences, and the same experiences always produce the same emotions. Those same emotions drive our very same thoughts and our biology, our neurocircuitry, our neurochemistry, our neurohormones, and even our genetic expression. Stays exactly equal to how you think, how you act, and how you feel. Now, how you think, how you act, and how you feel is called your personality. Your personality creates your personal reality. So to continue, the National Science Foundation reported that of the thousands of thoughts a day, 80% were negative. Remember that? I don't know if you do. 80% negative. 90% of the thoughts are on auto repeat each day. So to add to those stats that you just heard, 60 to 70,000 thoughts, 80% negative, 90% on auto repeat. There's a new stat that will further blow your mind. It blew my mind. According to Psychology Today, they say as much as 10% of our thoughts, 10% of our thoughts each day involve comparison. Oof. What that means is 6 to 7,000 thoughts a day going through your brain, comparing or stealing joy from you and putting it out there. Literally taking the joy and throwing it away, flushing it down the toilet every single day. So I know some of these, though, I guess it's not fair to say 6,000. Some of them might be positive comparisons, but I would bet that the vast majority are negative. I bet it's 80%. I bet 80% are negative. maybe 20, if you're lucky, are positive. There's a really great quote from James Clear. If you don't know James Clear, he has a really great book called Atomic Habits. He says this. He says, to improve, compare little things, marketing strategies, exercise techniques, writing tactics. To be miserable, compare big things, career path, marriage, net worth. He says comparison is the thief of joy when applied broadly, but the teacher of skills when applied narrowly. Oof. It is the thief of joy when applied broadly, but the teacher of skills when applied narrowly. I mean, that should give some guidance on things that make sense for us to compare to without falling into the trap where it steals our joy. So I want to share another really powerful theory about comparison that I love. You guys know that I'm a huge fan of John Acuff. In fact, he was a guest on this podcast, episode 8. Anyway, he shared a theory about comparison that I think it was powerful. He talked about, and why I'm sharing all of these different things, because something's going to resonate, and whatever's meant to resonate with you will resonate with you. He talks about how our brains are always looking for ways to see how we're doing. And one of the ways our brain does this is through comparison. He essentially says if our brains can't see progress, they will automatically look outside of us to give us data to tell us how we're doing, right? And it kind of makes sense. However, we know that external comparison can rob our joy and put us in a rut. So what is the solution to this problem? What he says, track how you are doing with your goals. Like track how you do and how you did. Compare yourself against you. This gives your brain the data that it needs and really keeps you focused on the only true comparison there is for you, and that is you. Keep data, make sure you are trending in an upward motion toward your goal, and you're golden. You don't need to stop and look outside of you and compare to what they're doing, because truly, you don't know their circumstances. You don't know if they have more funding behind what they're doing, if it's a business goal. You don't know if they have fewer health issues than you do for a weight loss goal. You don't know if there's really more fighting behind the scenes of Instagram that's happening with their perfect parenting, their perceived perfect parenting, right? Don't compare yourself to them. Compare yourself to you. Track things. Track how your improvements with your kids are going. Journal them. Track your weight loss. Track your food intake, all of that stuff. So use data and compare yourself against you. So I talked about how there's negative comparison. There's also positive comparison. I don't feel like it's fair for me to just go into all of the negative without sharing the positive. There's a quote that I love. I don't know, it is a quote, but Angelina Jolie has this tattooed on her arm. And I know this because I was like 16 and I saw it in like a People magazine. I'm like, what is that? And I zoomed, I don't know. I just had good eyes, I guess. But her tattoo says something like, that which nourishes me destroys me. And I love that because it's so true. Everything good also can be harmful. Everything dangerous and scary also can be beautiful. There are two sides, two edges to the sword, and understanding and being aware that comparison is the same, right? Comparison is something that can be so beautiful if we stay in our own damn lane, as my dad used to say. It can be detrimental if we are not watering the grass in front of us. Like the grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it, right? When we're busy comparing, busy seeing the problems they don't have and only seeing ours, that's where it destroys us. So let's talk about the good parts, the benefits of comparison. Let's make this happy for a minute. Comparison can be beneficial if used correctly. So what are some benefits of comparison? Remember, James Clear says, narrowly compared, right? So it can motivate us when we're comparing narrowly, not broadly. It can motivate us. It can teach us. It can offer us the belief that we can achieve our goals since someone else already has. It makes us feel and know that something is possible. That's motivating. Another thing, we can see the path and structure we need to follow to achieve a goal when we've seen it done before. We can gain those clues and create our own path using what's worked before. Comparison can help us troubleshoot our own goals by learning from what others have experienced, especially if others are open and honest with what they share. Comparison can push us forward. It can help motivate us. It can help us appreciate all that we have. How many times have you seen, like I mentioned, when you go to a country that doesn't have as much as we have, suddenly you appreciate what you have because you've compared in a healthy way. Comparison can help us support others. When we compare ourselves to our former selves, right, it's easy to see the progress we've made. So those are healthy, good kinds of comparison. When I was training to compete on stage, it was one of the most beautiful things for me to get to compare my body every week and my heart and my soul and my progress in every way to what I had experienced or captured last week. That's a beautiful example of comparison. As I'm reaching a goal, it's nice to compare week after week. Analytics tell the truth. So now, what are some of the dangers of comparison? We've already talked about some of these, so I'm just going to list these. It can become obsessive. Comparison can become obsessive. Think scrolling and all of the thoughts that come with it. It can affect our thoughts, which affect our actions. And whether or not we know it, they affect our goals and our ability to achieve goals. Comparison creates stress and frustration, which can keep us from progressing. Comparison can make us feel like a victim. Comparison can lower our self-esteem and our confidence. Comparison can increase depression and anxiety. Comparison can have us feel less than. And since we only see the highlights of others' lives and we don't see and recognize the hard work and the struggle that went into it, it makes sense that it would make us feel less than, and it's not even real. Comparison can make us feel like we need to keep up with others. Keep up with the Joneses. We've all heard that. It can make us feel like we need to keep up with others, even though we're comparing our real to their real, like Instagram reel. Comparison can promote judgment and negative attitudes towards others. It can make us feel like we need to be everything, which is impossible to accomplish. It can allow others to drive our behavior. What they're doing drives our behavior instead of us driving our behavior. I have an example of this. No, I'm not going to go into it. No, I will. I learned that I cannot compare who I believe I am to what someone else says I am. I can't. The only person I can compare who I am to is God, right? Who he says I am. For a while, though, I would hear naysayers and haters and online bullies say something about me. And I would compare who I thought I was with what they were saying I was. And I would think something was wrong with me. And then what it would do is it would lead me to take different action than I believe God wants me to take, than the action God wants me to take. I was becoming someone I wasn't to avoid the pain, to avoid their comparison, right? Because of their comparison, because I was comparing me with who they said I was, which was not accurate. Had me feeling less than. And it wasn't until I realized there's literally one judge and one person I should be listening to, and it's God. And I should be comparing myself to whether or not I believe I'm in line with what he wants. And only actions will be taken with that in mind. It wasn't until I did all that I was happy and free from that kind of comparison. Another thing I want you to remember is comparison. It can make us forget that we're not all in the same place in each of our individual journeys. There's a quote that says, "Don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle." I think that's a John Acuff quote, but it can be so easy to think you are behind when you're comparing yourself to others who just started before you did. That's it. They're a little bit ahead of you because they already started, right? You're starting now. And as you progress, your middle is going to be someone else's beginning. And they're going to be comparing, right? None of it's real because no one's in your shoes. There is literally one person who is in your shoes, and it's not anyone else beside you, right? Do not compare. Comparison, it also obviously can rob us of the energy to put that needs to and deserves to be put toward our dreams. Guys, I think this goes without saying, but one of the most dangerous forms of comparison we know is social media. I cannot go on it. A lot of people don't really believe this because I post a lot, but I don't go on social media to scroll because I know how bad it is for my head. Like I said, at this point in my life, what it's doing for me, I might hear of someone else when I'm choosing, because I believe God wants me to be here with my family and here on this mic, but I'm choosing to push pause on business while I finish raising my kids for a while and making them 100% my priority. It's very hard sometimes for me to see what other people are accomplishing and doing and not be upset with them, but be upset with me, because I feel like I'm so far behind compared to what they're doing. So right now in my life, true story, I have to be careful how much I open up Instagram because I will start comparing their businesses that are growing and thriving with mine, which has paused. And the longer you pause, the harder it is to catch up. And that thought, like that whole thought process will weigh me down like you would not believe. So I'm really trying to avoid that. Okay, 2 types of negative comparison I'm going to bring up real fast because I know this has been a long podcast. We're approaching an hour. Number 1, social comparison. We know what that is when we're comparing ourselves to others, right? It's easy to compare ourselves to everyone else, especially when we're bombarded by IG. And most of the things are filtered. And, I think many of you know that I took filters off earlier last year. In March last year, I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it because I hate when other people do it. Why would I do something that I hate? Because I don't feel like I'm enough? Okay, well, I got to get over myself. And it starts with me not putting filters on. I have not put a filter on since I came back to social after my little hiatus early in 2023. And it's been one of the greatest things. I actually love how I look now, which is crazy. Not saying, that sounds in a weird way, but I don't hate how I look anymore. I used to hate how I looked because I got so used to seeing my face through a filter that when the filter was removed, I didn't like it. All it took was me getting used to how I really look. And I'm a year older. Like I'm older, I've got more wrinkles, and I'm happier with how I look than I've ever been in my life. Just keep food for thought. Okay, the other kind of comparison, negative comparison, is self-comparison. When we compare who we are today with who we were 10 years ago, before we had 4 kids and all this responsibility or whatever it is, we compare our bodies today with the loose skin and all the things that we gained from childbirth, which are beautiful. For me, the loss of collagen, I don't have much elasticity anymore. I don't have much muscle because of the season of life that I'm in. And I'm dealing with these health things, but I compare my body sometimes with my body when I was competing, when I was thriving and I was young. I was 10 years younger, and still I compare myself with that body, and I have to stop myself and remember that Heidi, that yes, she had 4 kids, but she was in her 30s. She didn't have any health things going on. She was married, right? My situation was so different. My season of life was drastically different. We were coming off of a television show, which, truth be told, makes life a lot easier in the business world because no matter what you put out there, people like it. Then enter this world where we're not on TV for a decade. And suddenly it's a little bit harder, right? Instagram and algorithms have all changed and Facebook ads aren't the same. So my life, in order to get the same result that I need business-wise, I've had to tweak things and it's taken more energy from me. And I'm just flat out not in the same season of life that I was in then at that point. And I want you to think about the same thing. When you go to compare your body or your face to the picture that you're looking at from 5-10 years ago, I want you to think first, was that person even happy, right? Chances are you are happier and more wise as you've aged. But with the wisdom and the experience over time does come a loss of elasticity, more wrinkles, right? So we kind of lose our appearance as we gain self-love and wisdom. And so I do remind myself of that often when I'm comparing what I believed I was back then with who I am now. I have to remind myself that the most beautiful thing about me has nothing to do with my face or my body. And it has everything to do with who I am on the inside. And I am so clear that person has become more beautiful over time. And I know you have become more beautiful and more experienced and wiser and just full of lessons learned over time. So when you find yourself comparing your body or your face to pictures of the past, before you had kids, before you were pregnant, before you reached a certain age, before you had certain responsibility, before certain trials in life had hit you, I want you to think, yeah, okay, I might look different, but I feel and my heart is so much better and so much more beautiful. I want you to think of the things that you have to be grateful for. So here are some things. That's one way to conquer comparison. I want to talk about 8 more. So that's number 1. Number 2 is remember that there is only one you. There is only one you. There will ever only be one you. Just that right there. You can't compare because there's only one you. Number 3, remember to stay in your own lane and keep your eyes on your own paper. You are the only person you have control over. So keep the focus on you and not on what's around you. Next, I actually, real quick, before I finish that one, I love that. There's actually a saying or an acronym for hikers. It's HYOH, hike your own hike. And this is hikers on the Appalachian on the Appalachian Trail. They use this term, hike your own hike, just to remember that everyone is hiking for their own reasons. Some sleep in tents, some sleep in hammocks, some cook hot meals, some eat cold meals, whatever it is. Respect and appreciate that each hiker is on their own hike. And respect and appreciate, no matter what you see elsewhere, that each person is on their own journey. You are on your own journey. Number 4, monitor your social consumption. We already know this. Social media is not always the greatest thing. If there are accounts that make you feel poorly about yourself, nothing against the account. You understand that's a you thing. If you feel poor looking at someone else, I feel the same way. If I feel poor looking at someone, it's not their fault. It's just something in me that's unhealed and hurts when I look at their stuff. And so I'm going to either mute or I'm going to unfollow. And I want you to be courageous enough to do the same. Mute or unfollow. Number 5, watch your thoughts. If you find them going in a negative direction, immediately choose a positive one. We talked about that in part 2, thoughts and overthinking. There's only room for one thought at a time and you have complete control over it. Another thing you can do, if you can't think of something positive, just think of something you have to be grateful for. That works. Number 6, that whole idea of surrounding yourself with people who bring you up. Find role models or a support group, whether online or in person, that brings you up. People who inspire you to want to be and to do better. Surround yourself with those people. Number 7, make a can-do list. Make a list of things you can do or you have done, right? Make that list. What is something you were so proud of? Write it down, all these things in a list. And then when you're feeling discouraged or like you're not enough due to comparison, I want you to go look at that can-do list. Sometimes people will put pieces of paper in a can-do jar. Little pieces of paper with each one with an accomplishment that you've made or something that you're proud of. And when you're hurting or you're in need and you're feeling like you're not enough, or maybe you're comparing, I want you to pick something out of your can-do jar and I want you to read it and appreciate how far you've come. Number 8, serve someone. Find yourself by losing yourself in the service of others. I love that quote. I don't know who said it, but I love it because by serving someone else, you'll be reminded how great you have it. You'll have positive comparison and you'll take your mind and your focus off of you for a minute, off of selfishness, and you'll shift to selflessness, shift away from fear and low vibration to love and high vibration and light. Number 9, final thing, be grateful. Be grateful. Remember that all the good that's in your life, all of the good that you have in front of you. And remember that you are exactly where you're supposed to be, even when it hurts, even when you're comparing. Now you can catch yourself. You're where you're supposed to be. We are humans having a human experience. We are meant to learn as we go. This is all a part of your journey, your learning journey. So be grateful for that. And also, being grateful, it can center you. It can center your thoughts, and it can help turn negative thoughts into positive ones. So, guys, comparison's real. It is real. You know this. It's a trap. And I'm sure you've resonated in some way to something I've said. And I'm going to give you an invitation for this week. This week, I want you to choose one. I want you to first identify a place where you are comparing yourself to someone else or to an older version of you. I want you to choose one of the tips, just one. I've given so many. And I want you just to, every single time that comparison pops up, I want you to use just that one tip, whether it's gratitude or remembering your, maybe you do a can-do list or a can-do jar, right? Just use that. Use one tip every time it comes up. And then I want you to find a way to let me know how it's going. Okay? I am so proud of you. And I want you to give yourself so much grace as you go through this, because I know it's not easy. It's not going to be easy at all. Comparison's going to hurt just as bad next time you notice it as it did last time before you listen to this podcast. But hopefully something I said can make you more aware and can help you out. I love you, and I'm so grateful you were here with me. I'll say I'm so grateful you were here with me tonight or today or this morning, whenever you're listening to this. Until next time, we will be back soon with part 5. Love you. Bye-bye.